Well, hello everyone. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Welcome to our Meet the Geese faculty series. We are meeting one professor after another at the University of Illinois, the Gies College of Business. And today we have someone who I think you're going to be really interested in because she explores the ethical implications of artificial intelligence. Let me introduce you to Aravinda Garimella, who is an assistant professor at Gies College of Business. She earned her PhD at the University of Washington in info systems. She has a bit of corporate experience, so she's not totally an academic. She actually worked as a developer in the early days at Oracle, and then as a senior consultant at Ernst & Young before deciding to pursue a career as a scholar. Ari, tell me why you made that choice. What was it about academia that appealed to you and made you want to make this your life's passion?
Hi, John, and hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. Well, a few things. First, some of my family's influence, my mom and dad grew up with very little when they were children. And my grandfather was a big believer in the power of education to transform lives. And I saw that happen with their generation. And growing up in India, I also saw the impact it makes, let's say, when a mother is educated, how the family is raised. So I grew up noticing this very clearly time and again that education can empower people, lift entire generations out of poverty, and even create a wiser citizenry, which is necessary in democratic societies. So I see the importance of education as an empowering force. But specifically, to your question about my journey and what made me, choose that after my industry experience. My last job at Ernst& Young, I was a consultant. I was consulting clients on IT strategy, building roadmaps for them. What I realized in the job, as much as it's glamorous to live out of a suitcase and go to all these cities and consult, I realized that there were two aspects of the job I liked the most. One was problem solving. I like problem solving. That's why I got a degree in computer science, because coding feels like solving puzzles to me. And the second, when our entire implementation project at the client site was over, I would really enjoy giving training sessions to these clients on how to use the new software. I figured, oh, it looks like I do like teaching. So
Mm,
I put the
right,
two together and thought maybe a career in academia would be a good fit for those interests.
indeed. And you joined Keys in 2018, I believe,
That's right.
and have been there ever since.
Right.
So tell us about your area of focus and what you're really interested in today. I know that you have been following the development of artificial intelligence, and more importantly, the ethical implications of it from design to use. So give us a sense of why you chose that focus and what you're doing in it.
Right. Um, so my field is information systems. So we study broadly how technology impacts organizations, society, communities. Within that, I'm interested in how technology affects access to resources within organizations, again, within communities and society. These days, as you rightly mentioned, John, much of my interest is in human AI interaction and what its consequences are for specifically human decision making and and just generally other societal impacts. Why am I interested in this? My undergraduate degree was in computer science. It was very technical, you know. You would spend days laboring over trying to make an algorithm slightly more efficient, right? My interest after being in the business world and then coming to the US, and now my interest is more about switched a little away from that. I understand the the technology, but I'm really interested in the human aspect of it. Like, how does it affect individuals and thereby society? So with AI right now, we are at an inflection point ever since the release of ChatGPT, especially with generative AI. Why is it an inflection point? Because every generation is defined by some general purpose technologies, right? And AI was something fancy computer science engineers who had computer science degrees were working with. But now it is in the hands of everybody. It's a general purpose technology. And that comes with opportunities and risks. It is my belief that there's no shortage of enthusiasm about the opportunities. The entire tech industry is pushing for that. And as somebody whose education is in tech, I relate to some of that. It's always fun to find a new toy and play with it, right? And to tweak it and to make it more powerful. Who wouldn't find that fun? But I do think the advancement of AI and the deployment of AI is happening much faster than people are evaluating the pros and cons. What's the right way to deploy this? In a way that's human in the loop and not human out of the loop, right? In a way that doesn't affect society adversely. So I feel because there's a shortage of work in that area, that's a space I prefer to belong to, right?
Love to know what you're diving into.
Yeah, so much of my research studies like how do people interact with algorithms to make decisions. This is very important because so much we're doing today, we have algorithmic input, whether we know it or not, right? Even consumers are being nudged through algorithms the whole day. When we buy a purchase, we make a purchase, we don't know, was it me or did the algorithm make me do that, right? And so I study how people perceive algorithms and how that affects their decision making. One of the research projects I'm working on, for example, is at the intersection of AI and finance. So in this project, we're studying, it's an initial coin offering website where initial coin offerings, just think of them as entrepreneurial pitches on these website
Mhm.
using blockchain. And people put these pitches and experts come and review them, human experts come and review them. And other people see these and decide what to invest in. Now, as we know, this cryptocurrency ICO world is a very speculative industry, right? A lot of risk involved. So this is a nice ripe area to study AI. So what we were excited about is on this website, they deployed an AI bot that would give a rating to each project using artificial intelligence before any human could rate it. So I was wondering, what is the effect of seeing a rating like this before you can arrive at your independent assessment? Which is not easy to do if we get into the technical details because to do causally it's hard to do because I don't have a case where they don't see the AI bot, right? So then you use some econometric techniques to address that. But we found something interesting there that people are aligning their ratings with the bot, but
Ah,
it's not systematic. It's asymmetric. People are aligning their ratings with the bot when the bot makes a safe assessment. In the ICO industry, most projects fail. So when the bot says this is a bad project, humans are aligning with it. And when the bot says it's a good project, then they're a little all over the place. And there are some very interesting psychological reasons why people do this. And this is neither on its own good nor bad because maybe it's good, maybe they should exercise their judgment in those cases, right? But
hmm.
what's important finding from the research is human AI collaboration systems should be created with this understanding in mind. Right now, there is so much enthusiasm to deploy AI. I have had some industry practitioners talk to me and say, we just want to use AI. Tell us how. Right. So there's more excitement about the tool than the application, which, coming from a human centered design background, I feel always the use case should come first and then the technology, right? Not the other way around. But
Right.
anyway, so our research shows that there is this bias in how people are making decisions, and that's something to be factored into the design of these human AI systems. In another project, I'm finding that people, in general, there's an aversion to talk to AI chatbots compared to human beings. But we're noticing that in high stigma conditions, say related to mental health or sexual health or anything with high stigma, people are more willing to talk to AI chatbots. Not surprising if you think about it, right? Because people don't want to be judged, right? Uh,
Ah,
but there's a lot of risk with this, with misinformation, right? Because AI has great promise with creativity and all this, but it also suffers still at this point from hallucination problems and with biased data, biased outputs. So something very interesting and sobering we're finding in that research, which we want the world to know, right, is we have this control group and treatment group of low stigma and high stigma. And although we are not changing anything for the two groups, the high stigma group is underreporting their concerns about misinformation. They're saying they're downplaying it. We don't care that much about misinformation so that they can pre-justify their future choice to use the AI chatbot.
Wow.
This is a pattern to be aware of. So it's work like this that I think is timely, important, and that I take great joy in working on.
Every new disruptive technology always has unintended consequences. I remember when I was executive editor of Business Week magazine, and Steve Jobs showed up and put in the palm of our hands the first iPhones before the world knew them.
Right.
I think everyone was excited about having the power of a computer in your pocket. And initially, it was very positive. And then we learned about technology addiction and social media bullying, which more often than not occurs on the phone among young people, and even the manipulation of voters by disinformation techniques in major elections. And I wonder, looking ahead on AI, if you might imagine what are the unintended consequences we're likely to be talking about and dealing with in the next 5 years?
That's important. I think some of that is already in play.
Hmm.
Um, we're already seeing that. So there's already a lot of reliance on AI chatbots for news. They are not really a good source of news or of asking questions to do with the reality of the world per se, right? Because they are trained on different data sets. We know they have hallucination problems, right? But people are going to AI chatbots to it's a quick way to get answers. And the
Yes.
problem is one may say, what's so different between Google and this? We used to Google, right? The problem is A, it's generative, so it's sometimes making up stuff. But B, the very human like conversational nature makes it very tempting to continue engaging and somehow adds a false layer of security, of believability, which may lower our guards too, right? So there's already going on. I also think I'm on the side. I also do some fiction writing. That's something
Ah,
I enjoy, and I worry that the individuality of human expression may reduce over time because I see students who send emails asking for extensions. They're starting to look very similar.
oh,
And so that's fine. It's okay if they want to use ChatGPT to polish their emails. But I wonder in the long run if we'll all start to sound a little like each other
yeah.
and what we can do to preserve. I believe that technology should allow us to do things that are more human, like let machines be machines and people be people. I I I worry that maybe the creative part of humanity, of being human, right, is being outsourced to technology a little bit, and that's these are. I mean, this is just one concern, but I think bigger issues exist. Um, Misinformation, I feel already it's out of hand. Already we somebody just watches one YouTube video and then 10 days later they are radicalized into some very niche lines of thought, right? This is algorithms at play, right? I worry that the business models of many companies have they're optimizing on what? Engagement.
Right.
And if you optimize on engagement, then your algorithms will be, whether it's negative news that gets you that engagement, whether it's fake news, that's what goes into the middle. So these are, I think, misinformation and an increasingly polarized society is something I worry about. And this little bit what I'm talking about, this like people thinking somewhat there's some groupthink developing because of there's a back and forth, there's a loop. We feed into the chatbots and the chatbots feed back into us.
Mm. Now, how do you teach this to your students?
How do you teach this to students? Yeah. Uh, this has to be taught in a few ways to students. First is at a user practical level. They all already know ChatGPT, they use it, right? So sometimes I have them do some exercises using ChatGPT. I teach a class on SQL, which is an entry level programming language. It's not very difficult, so I love teaching it because some students have this fear that, um, I can never code. I'm not one of
That
those.
would be me.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, what did you say, John?
That would be me for
That would
sure.
be you. Well, you should come to my class, John, because I'm all about changing that. So I think it's a class I enjoy teaching for that reason, because 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, they start saying, I think I can code. And that's a great feeling.
That's
So
fantastic.
with generative AI, I have to do a few things. Like, how do you teach this? How do you bring this into class, this awareness, right? One is I make them do exercises. I give them a problem and say, why don't you use ChatGPT and do it, right? And then I'll have them swap their solutions and say, can you see if you can find mistakes, right? In ChatGPT solution. It's getting
Right.
hard because ChatGPT is getting very good at many things,
Getting
right?
much better than it was
Getting
at
much
the
better
beginning.
with time. So the challenge for educators right now is you cannot be closed off to new technologies. There is a lot of promise also they offer, and students are using them anyway. So you want to be part of that conversation so that you can guide them to use it properly. So there's that practical, and there's also a little help in everybody understanding a little bit about how generative AI works at a technical level. Doesn't have to be too deep, so that they understand when you say there's a hallucination problem, they don't have to take your word for it. They say, "Oh, this is how the neural networks work. That is why this can hallucinate," right?
Right.
So they need, if they can, I think our students are capable of understanding things like that.
Now, what do you like most about teaching business students at Geese?
Mm. Oh, our students are fantastic, John. Year after year, I meet students and their bright faces on the, which is my first class is next week, and I'm already looking forward to it. They come to class enthusiastic, eager to learn. They want to be challenged. I love that. I like that our students, they don't want an easy A. Sometimes because of grade inflation problems in the country overall, right? There is
Yeah.
this like, oh, I really want an A, right? Can I just get a class where a professor will give an A? But they come in, and within weeks, I notice that if you challenge them, they like it, and they want a challenge, and they're engaged, they're helpful. When I tell them, that classroom is a community space, if the
Hmm.
student next to you is struggling with coding, do you want to just take a look and see if you can help them? They rise up to that. They do that. They like teaching their classmates. They work well in groups. So GE students, business students, are so much fun to learn, because I think what's a good student is just an engaged student. You know?
True.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
Now, what do you find most challenging about teaching students?
Mhm. At this point in time, and this is not GE students, it's business students in general or educators in general, is things like, the new technologies, how to integrate them into your coursework.
Hmm.
And the trade-off is between you want to bring them in so that you can educate them on how to use them well and where not to use them. But in the absence of these generative AI tools, I would insist a lot on strong fundamentals. So I'm a computer science engineer myself, so I understand the importance of struggle when it comes to learning subjects like mathematics, coding. You need to fail many times, be frustrated, feel like hitting your head against a wall, and then you learn. That frustration is part of the process. It doesn't come easy. You need to fail. I worry that some of that struggle is being stolen from this generation, and how to give them the gift of that struggle in the presence of these technologies is a challenge. And I think it requires a lot of openness from the students, but a lot of openness, much more from the educator, to try many different things and be vulnerable, because when you try different things in the classroom, some are going to fail. It's going to be hit and miss sometimes. And you take notes and you move on, and you be transparent with your students that, why don't we try this today? Right? And you include them in the process. But you have to be brave. You have to be able to take risks to figure out what's the right way to integrate this into the mix.
Right. Indeed.
Yeah.
Now, you initially had a corporate career, and I wonder, as you became a business professor, what was most surprising to you about the job that you do?
I was surprised by the diversity of research that takes place in business school.
Ah, right.
I used to think, we think of working in the corporate world, or even most people outside academia think of business as like a few things, like how to maximize profits and, how to maximize revenues, or, things like that. Or, will a marketing campaign, ad campaign work or not, right?
Yeah.
And that is studied, that those are important business problems. But I realized, and I'm part of the people who study questions other than that, right? So
Mhm.
I was so excited when I learned that people study how fake news spreads. People study how businesses' decisions impact the environment. People study so many interesting things in business school. And I found that very pleasantly surprising and encouraging. And I think we're at a time when nobody needs to feel like an outsider in business school. You can. bring in your own interests. You can bring in your own passions to the table and say, this is what I want to study. And as long as in the long run you can show impact, I think there's a home for you. That's surprising and pleasantly so.
Yeah, that's very true. And there's so many different disciplines, and so much work is now interdisciplinary that it really broadens the scope of what you can do in a business school as a professor.
100%.
Yeah. So if you weren't a business school professor, Ari, what would you be? What do you think? Do you think you'd be a consultant?
If I wasn't, I don't think I'd go back to that. It was fun, but
You didn't like
but
living out of a suitcase, did you?
I did like that. It was very fun, but I think I've moved past that now. Well, I think I may be a writer, which I already am on the side. I enjoy. I really think that fiction has great power, and I feel everybody should read some fiction to develop empathy, to develop perspective taking. I think the world will be a kinder place if we all read more fiction. But I also,
That
when I
is that is your passion. When you're not doing a professorship.
yes, I exactly. So I do that. I write as often as I can, and it gives me great joy. And also, but when I was a little girl, I wanted to be a journalist.
Ah, okay.
And I still, that's something, I can see myself, my life could have gone that way. Um, I used to find the pursuit of truth seeking very noble and inspiring. And there's an aspect of my job now too that borrows, I think, from some journalistic principles and ethics. So I think in journalism, they say that you should take what's important and make it interesting. Don't take what's interesting and make it important, right? I think that applies to research too. It's
Hmm.
possible to pick problems that are somewhat easier to publish or will catch a few clicks or whatever, right? I don't think people are trying to get clicks in research, but I'm saying there are many other incentives in place, right? But I think it takes a little bit of courage or also a little bit of conviction to pick
Yes.
problems that you think make impact. And even in the short run, if it's a bit of a pain, and if it's because essentially these problems tend to be interdisciplinary, to your earlier point, which makes it harder. I think my point is that there are some things I borrow from journalism. Sometimes I can see that reflect in my life too, in the choice of problems, in what an engaged journalist looks like, and what an engaged scholar looks like. There are some similarities there too. Yeah.
I would agree with that. The other thing about being a journalist is you're really a lifelong student because
Yes.
you're always exploring, you're always learning, you're always engaging with people in a way that increases your understanding of the world and how the world operates, which is a great thing.
Absolutely. And that too, right? That's why I love being a university professor. Every time I walk through the quad, I feel like a student again.
Now I'm thinking because of your interest in technology, you must be writing in your fiction work about science fiction, right?
There is some science fiction. Yes, I wrote one. I started writing a one-act play about a student who's a research assistant for a professor who's trying to work on a Turing machine. Um, and I don't know, it's not going anywhere yet, but I think it's fun to do this because when you think about what is artificial intelligence, you also reflect on what is human intelligence. Like, what does it make a machine? Makes you think about what does it mean to be human.
True.
Yeah.
I can imagine a fictional story about someone who falls in love with an AI robot,
Yeah.
then gets divorced from the AI robot.
But the second part
And
doesn't you, John. You should
then the robot tries to kill the person.
yeah. So Ex Machina has
So,
two of those three ideas, but the divorce it doesn't. So, right?
uh,
Yeah. Right.
so last question. If you had your way, the business school of the future would have much more of what?
Yeah, I think one is what we spoke about a little bit. You spoke about is interdisciplinary work,
Yeah,
because I think we're in a world where we've always been in a world where disciplines need to speak to each other, but much more so now. We cannot afford to work in silos. Engineers cannot afford to lock themselves in rooms and write programs. Business school professors cannot afford to just talk to each other. We need, so if I'm studying ethics of AI, in this there are notions such as accountability, transparency, bias. These require perspectives from psychology, philosophy, sociology, right? What does it mean to make ethical AI? This is not a simple question at all, right? And it's not for one group to decide. So interdisciplinary work, I think, is the need of the hour. I do feel very fortunate to be in Geese at this time because there is a lot of encouragement for interdisciplinary work here, and a lot of support for it too. I think that's what is the need of the hour. And along with being interdisciplinary within academia, a lot of dialogue with practitioners, with actual end
Mhm.
users.
Right.
And finally, I think it would be nice if we could also have more impact on local communities, whichever community the school's operating in. If some of the gains from all this knowledge could trickle down to local communities, I think that would be also pretty nice.
Those are all good, positive thoughts. And I'm sure many deans out there will be listening to them and learning from you, even on this measure. So, Ari, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
I look forward to your studies and your scholarship in the years to come. And for all of you out there, I hope you enjoyed our interview with Aravinda Garimella, the assistant professor at the Gies College of Business, University of Illinois, who's exploring the ethical implications of AI among many different things, including technology and access, which is another very important issue in which you have a forthcoming paper on that subject, in fact. So you're watching our series on Meet the Faculty at the Gies College of Business. Look out for more episodes. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants.